Okay. Well, everybody, thank you for coming today. This is kind of a fun and a little bit different gathering meeting than we've done in the past because today our guest is my husband, Tim Ray. And so hopefully he'll behave and not embarrass me too badly. But this is something we've talked about for a long time because he uses some tools that we'll talk about in a little bit, but that I think will be really valuable to you all in your own lives and just in your writing practices as well. So we'll get there. But first, I just want to let you, Tim, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do, and yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, so it's nice to see you all. Like I said earlier, I get to finally see faces to names, and it's great to have that be the case. So, my background is in business. I mean, you all are on the writing side, but you all also have a business of writing. So, and so I love seeing what's going on here with this group, and because my background in the business world is obviously the business side of things. And so that's where my passion lies. So I have done many things. I always tell people I have a very odd set of experiences because I'm not like somebody who's been from one industry into the same industry to the same industry. I've gone from industry to industry to industry. So I've never really been in the same industry, frankly. So that has given me kind of a broad range of expertise and skills, and I've learned all kinds of different things from different angles, and that's been great. And so I'm kind of transitioning now into more of a coaching type position where I'm really helping people identify issues and solve those issues faster, and really get people on board with process and scale and everything to make sure that everybody has the right seats, the right people in the right seats at the right time. So obviously in this case, I've been working with smaller scale businesses for most of my life, frankly. That's really what I love doing, because I find that the people are, they're still quite passionate about what they do, and they love what they do. And so, and I love working with them. So that's kind of my history and where I'm at now. I have found this tool over the last 3 years or so that's really been impactful to me. And so that's, I think, what Kara wanted to share today. So
that's what I told him to say, everybody. It kind of reminded me of that line from Liam Neeson's movie. He's like, I have a very special set of skills. That's Tim. He's not an assassin.
Although that would be cool, and I would not be opposed to that.
So, and one thing that's kind of interesting for what we do here on the block is that Tim, over a decade ago now, started his own online community, similar to the writer's block, but it was in a very different industry. Like he said, it was within, it was an education, but also specifically for drone training operators. So he's been a real big help for me as we've kind of built this community of the writer's block to be able to talk about community and how to maximize its effectiveness. And so that's been fun to do these two communities together in different roles. But
yeah, and frankly, that's why I'm so passionate about this type thing with community, because excuse me, because I've seen it work and the impact of it. And so I really applaud you guys for being in here, because not only is it fun, but it is truly impactful. So yeah.
Yeah, you learn so much more when you're surrounded by people who are going in your same direction as you are. So Tim always says that he's not a writer and he's not very creative, but he's a great writer. He writes all the time, and he's very careful in the way he crafts his words, but his creativity and his bent is different than maybe a lot of us experience in this community. But Can you talk a little bit about the ways you see creativity kind of flow into the work that you do, that it might look different than what most of the members here watching or listening today, how they interpret creativity, but you do it in sort of a different way. So what do
Yeah,
you say about that?
well, yeah, my wife is being too kind to say that I'm a writer because I am not a writer. I do write emails very well, and I'm very good at
Which
wording
counts.
things. Yes, but I'm very, very slow and I hate writing. So um, I, the reason I say I hate it, because I'm being dramatic, frankly, is just because what I'm not good at is creating something out of nothing. I'm really good at taking things that exist and making them better. So that I can do all day. I marvel at you guys who are able to um, uh, write things like from nothing. That is incredible to me, and the creativity involved in that, even though you may be taking knowledge that you've heard or seen or read or whatever, it's still you're creating something new. So that said, communication is very critical to me with writing because I do so much of it with emails and texting, and frankly, with most of society today, they stink at it. So so it is a critical skill that I feel people are losing. Now, on the creative side of things, for me, my creativity really comes through, whether it's in branding or graphic design or things like that. That's obviously a creative aspect that I do. But I think the biggest thing for me with creativity is in creative problem solving. So um, I'm I feel like if your all's gifting is writing, my gifting is solving problems. Like that's how the Lord's wired me. And so my ability to, dissect a situation and come up with creative solutions to solve that problem, that's what I'm good at. And so, the reality is creativity flows, whether in writing, whether in building websites, whether in creating brands, or whether in solving problems. There's creativity in all aspects of it. And depending on what that creativity is I think really in many respects, how the Lord has wired you is how you're going to be creative in that role, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
does
I
that
mean,
answer the question?
and that was the title of this talk today, was that we're fearfully and wonderfully made. I think often we think creativity looks one particular way, like Amy even said. It's a very broad term, right? It doesn't just apply to artsy things like paintbrushes and pens, but it really, God uses and gives us so many methods and ways to express creativity. And I love that, like in Genesis, it talks about that we were made in his image in the Imago Dei. And God gave us this reason and this capacity for design and beauty and aesthetics and problem solving and improving something that already exists. These are all expressions of Imago Dei. This is all the ways in which God uniquely created us. And I think one thing that you do, Tim, just in your work, is that you're helping people identify the ways in which God has gifted them. You are able to look at people and see, like, okay, the things that you think are your weaknesses are actually just the way God made you, and you can lean into those things and kind of build support systems around those areas that you may perceive as a weakness, but that's really not a weakness. It's just the way God made you, right? Like, and I think as people, just creatives, as people who are maybe in an industry kind of where we're constantly comparing ourselves to other writers, other creatives, other women, other moms, other whatever, that we can actually take a look at ourselves and see how God has creatively made us and stop trying to become something we're not, right?
Yeah. So, in all my years, especially now, and starting to work with companies, one of the things that I focus on first is the people component, because I always tell these companies, it does not matter how good your processes are. If your systems are top notch, but you don't have the right people, it will not matter, because culture will always trump process, always. So, and for myself, I've just realized over the years that not striving to be something I'm not is really freeing. And instead of trying to be something that, like Kara said, if you have this perceived weakness in your life, it's not a weakness. It's just that the Lord has made you to where that is not your, your area of expertise or your area of strength, so to speak. That doesn't mean it's a weakness. It just means that's who you are. And so I think the key is to, it's really helpful in my experience to identify how the Lord has wired you so that you are not striving against that natural bent. And I don't mean to make this metaphysical, because I'm not at all. We are each fearfully and wonderfully made, and we're each fearfully and wonderfully made different. And so if you are not good at something, or even just don't enjoy doing something, what I always say is, okay, well, let's identify ways to have somebody else participate in that, or focus on the areas where you are good. And so, because that's what's fun. I mean, really having your passion come out and being able to focus on that in life, that's what is really driving. Like, I have learned about me that as much as I'm not a people person, I love helping people get it, like training people and helping people understand these things and get it and get better. That is fun. Like, I could do that all day. That gives me energy. Okay, so something like a tool like Culture Index has really helped me learn how the Lord has made me. Okay, cool. These things in the past that have always been a struggle for me, now it makes sense why that was such a struggle and why I would never get that done, or something like that. And really adjust to focus on the things that I am more gifted towards or bent towards.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. And what you said, I feel like needs a little bit of clarification, because you said, I'm not a people person. I think a lot of times we think about these tools, like probably what you all are most familiar with are things that are called personality tests, right? Like the Enneagram or the DISC or Myers-Briggs or whatever. And those all are really cool and they're helpful. This is not that. And so I'm going to let you explain what Culture Index is, but I just want to clarify that this is, when you say you're not a people person, it doesn't mean that you don't love people, right?
I love my people. So
it's that you love your people.
You put me in a room with people and say go network, I will go sit in a corner and hide. I hate that. And in fact, I'm just to the point where I just won't do it. So I just know it's just not my thing. So why go do it? So, but put me in a group like this with people that even though I don't know you all great, we have a shared passion with whatever. I mean, with community and all of these things, with the Lord. This does not weigh on me. I mean, I love this stuff. It's really the disconnect of like, hey, just go talk to people. I'm so bad at small talk, and I think I'm very awkward because I hate small talk and I don't know totally what to say. So it goes very, very odd, very quick. So anyways, so I've been big into this stuff for many years. I mean, I've done, DISC and Myers-Briggs and Enneagrams and Colby Index and all these things. And it was what really changed things for me with Culture Index is, number one, I didn't need more personality indexes, okay, or tests, okay, because I kind of had got to learn how I was personality wise and could detect that in other people. What really helped me with Culture Index is I was at a point with the community that I'd started with, that Kara mentioned earlier with the drones, where I just was in conflict with partnership and had been for a while. And when I did Culture Index with the guy who is the consultant out here that I know, it was the first time that I realized this is never going to work. Like we are misaligned. Like truly, we are misaligned. And he's wired this way. I'm wired this way. It's not that we're not compatible. It was more just culturally, it just wasn't going to work. So I was kind of already thinking of getting out at that point. I knew at some point that would be the case, but that really was the tipping point for me, and I got out.
Yeah.
And Culture Index really helped drive that. And the other thing for me with Culture Index is it really filled a lot of holes that I felt like a lot of these other things leave up for interpretation. They kind of stop short of going to the next level, and Culture Index for me really made more sense. And Culture Index is not a personality test. It really it really is more of identifying how you are and if you're a fit for the role that you are in. Okay, so the way that I use Culture Index specifically is with companies, identifying what roles do you have in the company, who are the people in the company, and who should be where. Okay, because that's a big problem, is misalignment. And I saw somebody ask about how do I define culture, or what do I mean by culture? And by the way, if there's questions being asked here, love, be sure and let me know, because I'm trying to not get totally distracted because my mind will race like crazy.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. So, I mean, culture in this context, I'm always thinking about is, I like to think of it as alignment. Okay, there's a ton of different ways to look at it, but culturally in a company, are we all rowing? Are we all in the same boat? Are we all rowing in the same direction? Okay. Are we in alignment? Do we know where we're going? Those things are going to produce a good work environment, happy people, and all of those things will lead ultimately to a good culture, a place that people want to be. So that is really the point of it. And in so doing, I will always tell people, knowing you is critical to having that be effective in work. And so half the time, it's not even necessarily that I tell people, well, inevitably what I did when I go through somebody's index, it's always like, I can't believe that you can tell me that you know me that well just from looking at that. I mean, that's inevitably what people say, because it is quite scientific and accurate. But the real power of it is understanding, okay, then, so where are the struggles, and let's identify why you may be struggling with those because of the fact that you're wired this way, or who are you struggling with. It really helps me identify those things where it's not an issue. It's not a matter of necessarily saying, okay, this person's like this, you're like this, you need to be more like this. No, that's not the point. The point is you're like this, they're like this. So how do we work better together? Okay.
Yeah,
And yes,
we've looked at that, not only just, I mean, in our application here at the writer's block, this might not apply to all of us. We might not all be in a company situation, but we've even used this in our own family. Like we've given this survey to all of our kids. It's helped us in our parenting to kind of really understand who each of our kids are in terms of the way God's wired them. Like there is one child who shall remain nameless, who I struggle with because she's very emotional. And Tim always tells me, like, this is because of her, we call it her logic trait. she leans way more emotional than she does logical. And so that helps us in the way we parent. It helps us in the way that we work together as husband and wife to kind of really understand the way God's made us versus trying to change each other. We've even
Well,
used this in our small group. I don't know if this was the intended application, but we've even counseled like young married couples with this, because I think it just helps you understand like who you're dealing with, not only about yourself, but about the people closest to you, right?
yeah, and also just to say, as it relates to any business, whether it's just you or whatever, it doesn't matter. If like for me as an example, I just learned that I am really bad at maintaining things. I'm really good at building things and constructing things and putting processes in place. But once it gets to that point, I inevitably get bored. And so, um, you know, it's helped me learn that once I get to that stage, I have to pass things off. Like if I don't pass things off and if I have to sit there and maintain, it will never flourish because I'll be bored and I'll be distracted because I'll be on to something else. And so, as it relates to any business, whether it's if it's writing or anything, knowing how you are wired, how the Lord has made you will help you identify areas where you may struggle with certain things, but you don't know why. Or it may even identify where, I don't know, you may not even think of it as a struggle, but once you start to learn this stuff, you're like, oh, that makes sense why I never do that, or it's always this. And, so my hope is that by learning those things, that it will enable you to more quickly adjust, and also just frankly, in many respects, give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
Um,
So can you tell us, I want to get to the point where you're going to explain, because I'm sure people are kind of like, okay, well, show us how this works. And so Tim is going to kind of explain that a little bit, and we're going to give you all the opportunity to take this survey. And the idea here is that we're going to give you a link at the end of this time together where you'll have the option, if you want to fill out this survey. And then tomorrow, Tim will go through those surveys with you. It will be a very quick overview, depending on how many of you fill out these surveys. But we want to give you the opportunity to see this in action and apply it to your lives. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about like what that process looks like, Tim, and then, kind of walk us through like some things that we might need to know before we take the index.
yeah, and I'll just tell you guys up front, because I'm telling you right now what's inevitably going to happen after this is you're going to say, oh my gosh, I need my husband, or oh, I want my daughter to take this, or whatever. And I'm just telling you right now, that's fine. So if that's what you want to have happen, that's okay. That is not a problem. And I'm happy to interpret it. That is one thing about Culture Index that I will tell you is this is not they intentionally make it to where interpretation, if I just gave you the index, you'd be like, I have no idea what this means. They want somebody like me to have to interpret it for you. And I've railed against that for periods, and the more I do it, the more I understand why, because I think people will miss a lot of the meat on the bone, so to speak, if they don't have that. So yeah, and I also just want to say this, if I can, love, that I want to be a resource for you guys, not just this week or whatever. So if you guys have questions moving forward, or if you're in a point of struggle or you're stuck, okay, then by all means, I'll be here to walk you through that. And knowing your index at those points is really helpful for me to help figure out the best way to get you unstuck or whatever it is that you are. Okay. So I just want to mention that this is not something where it's like, hey, we're going to do this week and hey, good luck, have fun. I truly love this stuff and I love helping people get this. And so I think what you're going to find as we go through this is that you'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, this makes total sense for the writing aspect because it's going to really help you learn all kinds of things that you may not have thought of. So anyways, when you do take this survey, it's going to be very odd because there's no questions. This is all words. So you
Which
will
writers
get in
will
there.
love. All of
Yeah,
you writers
seriously.
will like that.
Now, someone like me, half the words, I don't even know what they mean, and I'm Googling them. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. So as you go through it, I think there's 100 words, and you are literally just selecting words that you feel describe you. Okay. So if you think you're aggressive, I know was one of the words that I remember offhand. Of course, I remember that one, but if you feel like you're aggressive, you would select aggressive. Okay. And that's all you're going to do. Okay. And there's two sections to it. There's a survey trait section where it's like, okay, this is how I believe I am wired. This word describes me. Yes. And then there's a job behavior section. This is how I feel I need to act in order to be successful in whatever it is I am. So for you guys, it may be in writing. Okay. In order for me to be a good writer, I feel like I have to act like this, as an example. So, but you could really do it for whatever. So I'm just letting you know there's kind of two sections to it, and they're both the exact same. You're just selecting words. Okay. Love, do you want me to show my
Yeah,
index?
go ahead. And so we're gonna show you, because this explanation part takes a little bit of figuring out. And so we want you to have this information before tomorrow if you fill out the survey. So
yeah, and yeah, this wasn't my original thought, but the more I thought about it and we talked about it, I was like, it may be helpful for tomorrow, not knowing how many surveys I'd need to go through to have this data point today. So I will go through this a little quick, but yeah, and we'll go through and discuss things more tomorrow. So just as an FYI. Okay. All right, you all seeing this now? All these weird dots all over the place. Oh, there it is.
yeah.
And I can see that I see. Cool. Okay, so there are 19 survey traits in Culture Index. Okay, so everybody is called something. Okay, and in my case, I'm what's called an architect. Okay, you see all these weird dots, and I'll just tell you right now, the fact that my red dot is at a 9 and my yellow dot is at a 1 means absolutely nothing. Okay. Does not matter what number you're at. Only these two dots down here, the L and the I, matter what number they're at. These don't matter. What does matter is how far the dots are from this red arrow here. Okay. The positioning of the red arrow also does not matter. It's just indicative of how many words you roughly selected. I roughly selected 40% of the words. Who cares? It just positions the arrow, and the positioning of these dots from the arrow is what's important. Okay. What's important about those is that the further away from a line, the more extreme you are. Okay. So you can tell I have what is called I have a very wide patterned index. Okay. Which just simply means overall, I am more inflexible than people with tight patterns. Okay, my traits are more extreme than people with tight patterns. Okay, a tight pattern would be, I have no tight patterns to show you because my wife is also extreme. So a tight pattern would obviously just be closer to the line. Okay, so the other thing to know is that anything to the left of this arrow over here is considered quote unquote low. Anything to the right is considered high. And I always tell people high or low is not good or bad. It just is. You either high or low, and it doesn't mean that's good or bad. It just is. Just like I always tell people, and I just want to reiterate, there are no bad traits. Literally, we are fearfully and wonderfully made, like we've said already. So this is how the Lord has made you, and you are gifted in numerous ways, and everybody is different, and that's the beauty of it. So So there is no good or bad index. So the A trait here stands for autonomy, and autonomous is going to be things like risk taking. Okay, if you are right of this, you are high again. So I am a extremely high risk taker. Okay, I risk taking does not really concern me. Now, does that mean though that I like going and jumping out of planes and cliffs? No, I hate that actually. So I don't want to do that. So it doesn't mean that I'm like this crazy daredevil person. It just means that when it comes to things that I'm doing in life, I am not risk adverse. Okay, if somebody is a low A trait, they are more risk adverse. Okay, high A traits are visionaries. They want to lead. They're driven. They're all gas. They want to win. Okay, they just want to win. Okay, and whatever they do, they want to win. Okay. A B trait, this yellow dot, is sociability. Okay, so when I said earlier that I'm not really a people person, again, it's really that as a low social person, okay, I'm very unsocial theoretically. It doesn't mean that I'm not social. It just means that if I am social, depending on who I am socializing with, it is either going to drain my energy or not, or it will give me energy. Okay, so somebody like me, if I'm again in a networking situation, that is going to drain me like crazy, and I will not like that. Okay, if I am in a situation like this, there may be elements where I will be tired and need a break afterwards, but it is not going to drain me near as fast as anything ever would with people I don't know or care for. Okay, so it also just means in my case that especially again, the combination of things also matters. So the fact that my A traits way right and my B traits way left, that also will indicate that I'm a very quick learner. I could pick things up very fast, and it also is indicative of the fact that I can sometimes come across as apathetic. So I would say to where, yeah, I can very much come across like I don't care, because I typically don't care. So I'm not concerned about what people think about me. Okay. People with a higher B trait would be concerned about what people think, and that would dictate how they act. Okay. Sociability, excuse me, a C trait is patience. Okay. So I am a very impatient person. Okay. Which I know that to be true, and that is something that, depending on the circumstance, is good or bad in some cases, again. But as it relates to pace, I'll call it, how quickly you get things done, impatient people move quick. Okay, so yeah, so I like to move fast. The D trait is detail. And again, where it's right of this arrow, I am a higher detail person. Now, I'm not extreme in my detail. Okay, so for me, I need detail, but I don't need a lot of it. So, and I definitely don't need a lot of it to make a decision. Okay, and because I am a detailed person with a high A trait, when I get enough detail, I am comfortable making a decision, even if I don't know the outcome or am unsure of it. I'm okay with making that decision and moving forward because I'm comfortable with risk. Okay, just trying to give some examples and context to this. This EU here stands for energy units, which is your battery. Okay, so my battery is very average. I don't have a small battery. I don't have a big battery. People with big batteries can go, they're like the Energizer Bunny. They can just go constantly. It seems like they never stop. They never get tired. People with big batteries can adapt quickly. They're more flexible. If I have somebody with a big battery and they're a low B like I am, and I say, hey, I need you, you're going to have to be nicer about this, that will affect them very little compared to somebody with a small battery who's a low B, and I'm making them do that. That will affect them much quicker, and they'll wear out. Okay, so I can see with this battery if somebody is burning out before they even tell me. Okay, so, or I can see if they're distracted. They're not even giving everything they've got at work, or whatever, because they have something else going on that's pulling energy from them. Okay. Could be home, it could be anything. Okay. The L trait is logic. Okay. So, and this is where the numbers do matter. So me being a 6 on logic means that I am more of a thinker than a feeler. Okay. If you are a low logic person, which I have 4 kids, 3 girls, all 3 girls are low logic people. They are all very emotional. And this is where knowing this about your kids is very helpful, and talking to them and working through things, and giving them counsel and all these things. But as a 6, I think more than I feel. I'm going to think my way through decisions. I'm not going to feel my way through decisions, but I do feel. Okay. And again, this is where all of this plays into this. The fact that I do feel things. The big joke in our house is that Kara is like the most emotional one from the standpoint of always crying over something, even though Kara has the highest logic in the family. Okay. So why is Kara crying more than I am? Because I'm more emotional. Well, that's because of my A trait. To me, crying is losing. Okay. So,
Don't say it like
well, I'm
to
so
be
driven to
clear,
win
I cry at
everything. So,
movies and music, but
and speech
anyway.
and writing. And okay, anyways. So again, it doesn't mean that that's true, obviously, but my A trait, desire to win, is going to suppress that more than it would with somebody. And also I'm a low B. Okay. I'm just not people drive isn't there. So I just don't feel things as much as she does. Okay. So anyways, and then your I trait is ingenuity. So high I people are, they have ingenious ideas. Like I'm a 2, so most of the ideas I have that I mention or say, I have either seen, I have done, I've experienced, I've read about, I have some context to the idea. Okay. High I people like 7, 8, 9, they are coming up with original ideas all the time. Like they may come up with an idea that you're like, I would have never thought of that. Okay. That is a high I person with somebody like me. I'd be like, I would never have come up with that at all. That's brilliant. The challenge with high I people can be that they can just sometimes be unfocused because they have ideas in their head all the time. Okay. And they may also be frustrated because they don't know what to do with all these ideas. And like I know one guy that I've been talking to he's like, they're telling me I'm not ADHD, but I feel constantly distracted. I'm like, dude, you have your I trait is 8. Okay. And he's a high A driven guy. He wants to win. He's very social. This guy just is constantly having ideas, but he doesn't know what to do with them. And so it's coming across like he's just distracted because he is, but he doesn't need medication for it. Okay. He just needs a process of how to deal with it. So that is an example of some of the stuff that I can see with this, then really talk through with people. And it's helpful just to know. So yeah.
You want to go through the job behaviors too, real quick? And just
sure. Let's go through yours for that.
okay.
So because you can see my job behavior down here is very similar to up here.
It kind of matches the same pattern.
Yeah, you can see that I am behaving. See, Kara, I'm behaving. Anyways, I am behaving similar to how I'm wired, which that's what we want to see. You can also see that I'm also not giving, when I did this, all that I could give, which I know why, because I was distracted working on other things, because I was at a point of maintenance and I was bored. So I was doing other things as well. So, you can see that with Kara. So let's think this through. Kara says to me early on in our marriage, I always said I was never going to marry an entrepreneur. And I'm like, yeah, well, the Lord has a sense of humor on that.
Never say never.
And so, and you can kind of see somewhat why. I mean, so if you look at our two traits, and I would never tell people you're not compatible because that's garbage. But you can see where tension could potentially arise in our marriage, right? Because I am an extreme risk taker. Kara is extremely risk adverse. Okay, she does not like risk. Okay, I don't mind risk at all. So she's patient. Okay, her C trait's right, so she's patient. Thank you, Jesus. She is more social than I am. Okay, but she's not a high social. So this actually works well for us. And like Kara's always telling me, I need you to talk more. You're not saying enough. Participate. Because I can just sit there and listen to people and not say a word, and that puts all the work on her, which is exhausting. But she's also detailed. She's extremely detailed. Okay, she needs all the details. So somebody like Kara, it's not that Kara won't take risks, okay? Because the reality is, let's look at, she's started a community that's, she would certainly consider risky. But it's not that she won't act that way, okay? It's just that she will not move until she has all the details, okay? Ultimately. Now, this is where I just have been learning that I do think that there are things that play into this very much that are sort of outside forces. So for example, with Kara, if you look at how she's behaving, it's very contrary to what she was. Now, this was done over a year ago, so I have no idea what she had in her mind that she was doing at this point, but whatever it was, she was having to take more risks in her mind, be more assertive, that want to win. She was actually being extremely social. So again, I don't really know what the context was at that point because it was a while ago. Yeah, but she was feeling like she had to be extremely social to win or to be successful at whatever it was she was doing. She was being impatient. Okay, and she was not showing detail. So you can see this was really against who she is. And Kara is a wide pattern. Okay, so she's more inflexible. Her battery's bigger than mine, but it's not large, but it's bigger. But you can see this, how this was weighing on her. Okay, and it's not that she was burning out, but it was draining her energy for sure. So she wasn't giving more than she had, it was taking more than she had in some regards. Okay, so if it were me or if it were somebody I was working with in a business, I would say, okay, we have an issue here, we need to talk through. This person is either in the wrong seat or they perceive something that we need to fix. So if this were you, same thing. I would say, let's talk about this. Let's work through this. Let's try to see what we can do. And there are elements based on what you are doing in life. I mean, you will need to adjust. And again, with Culture Index, it's not saying that this is how you're wired, therefore this is how all you can do. That's not the point. The fact that Kara's a low A and is not a risk taker doesn't mean she can't take risks. Okay, it just means her process in getting to that point is very different than mine, very different. Okay, and when she does take risks, it's going to weigh on her way more than it's going to weigh on me. Okay, because it's not going to weigh on me in the end. For the most part, it will weigh on her. Okay, I think a lot of this comes out because the reality is Kara is married to me, who looks like this. So there is elements where because of that, she is making adjustments. Okay, this is not how Kara acts all the time. Kara is not this high extreme social person. I mean, that is not her, and that would be really exhausting for me if she was, because then we would be constantly going over and talking to people and I would be like, oh my gosh, not again. So so this is not how she always acts in any way, shape, or form, but you can kind of see how it's indicative of something was going on there. And again, don't know exactly what, but it just kind of helps you see these things. So that is in a nutshell what culture index is and how I can read this and interpret the data. What I like about it is it's very scientific. This is not some touchy-feely ethereal personality test. This is very much who she is, how is she acting, what's going on, or in this case for me. So if this again were somebody I was working with, I'd say, hey, you're clearly in the right seat. You seem bored, or not challenged, or something's going on outside of the house, or outside of at home and outside of work, or there's something draining you, pulling energy. So let's talk that through and make sure that it's not something we can fix. So
Yeah, so
yeah,
the tool is so intuitive, right? And like you said earlier, like when people go through this, I've seen it so many times. Their faces are just like, they're gobsmacked. They're like, how do you know this? It's really kind of fun because it really does tell a lot of information about what's going on with you. And, the application of it, the way you use it is like, when you're looking for somebody to fill a position, it's like, well, we may need a very high A person with, a high B traits, things like that. So you can get very specific about what kind of person you're looking to hire. But it also, as Tim explained, it can be really effective and helpful just in understanding how you're wired and how God has made you.
Yeah, and my hope, if I can just interject, love, is just to say that, like I think I mentioned before, my hope is to just help you guys, help you all understand, okay, this is who I am. This is how I'm wired. And you may know some of this, and that's great. But if I can just pull out some extra insight that can help you in your writing and in the progression of whatever that looks like for you, no matter what you want to do with your writing, my hope is just to help you through that process. And so, yeah, so I would love to see y'all take the index. I'll interpret it.
Put the link in for us.
Yes, I can. So should I stop sharing maybe?
Yeah.
Let me get the index link.
So while he does that, has this been interesting and helpful to you all? And do you have questions? I'm sure you'll have questions when you get your results, and Tim will go over that with you. Like he said, he just dropped the link in there, and he'll help you interpret the results. So please come back tomorrow so that you can get that. But if you have any questions, let's see, space, what time are you? Yes, it will be recorded. It's going to be the same time slot, it's 10 o'clock Pacific time tomorrow. And if you're not able to be on the call with us, we might just put you towards the end of the hour if time permits. And yes, but we'll still do that.
And I'll make sure everybody is interpreted. And again, if you all have questions afterwards, then let me know. I will, I'll be going through it a little bit faster than I usually like to, I'll be honest with you. So I'm happy to work through that. And so, yeah.
Yeah, will they get the results emailed to them, or do
you will not?
Okay, so you guys won't get those results, but if you're comfortable with it, and you should be, because there's no wrong index, he'll share those tomorrow.
And just so that you guys know, just to encourage you in that, I mean, it's really actually quite helpful to do this together. If you are comfortable with that, because it does help you get to know everybody better.
Yeah, for sure.
It really does. And I think that my experience with it is it really drives more vulnerability and openness, because people, there's just something about it where it's like, okay, well, I didn't know that you're like that, gosh, and you can just keep these things in mind. I'm sure you may not geek out on it like me, but it really does. It does drive so much of what I do because it's so powerful. Like Kara said, we really are teaching our kids this. Nothing makes me happier than when the girls get in the car and said, "Oh my word, she was acting like such a low L." And I'm like, okay, that is
Yeah, this
amazing.
is just part of the
So,
language in our home. Stop being such a low L. Or I need you to
but
be
it
more
helps
detailed.
because there are times with the one who shall remain unnamed who will say things that are very utterly, completely irrational. And by the way, that's one thing I didn't mention about low L's. And I should have mentioned that, sorry. So high logic people are very black and white. Okay. The higher the logic you are, the higher the black and white you are. There is minimal gray. And as that scale goes down, there's more and more and more gray to where it's just gray. So low logic people like ones and twos and everything, and anything 5 or less, frankly, you feel everything, okay? And if you're overly logical, or excuse me, if you're underly, how's that for a word with this group? Oh my word, get wordy.
They're judging you right now.
Yeah, I know. So I'll embrace it. If you're underly logical, then you feel everything and you can become irrational. And that is the challenge with our kids. I'll just use as the example who, again, all the girls are low L's. It enables us to remind them, hey, I understand why you're feeling that, but that is not a logical thought. And here's why. Okay, you have to remember this, this, and this. And you feeling that right now does not make it true. It just makes it a feeling. And in your case, there's no reality behind it. Okay, so
Rosemary asked, are teenage girls always low L?
no, they're not. Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm sure that there are a fair amount, but no. I know numerous ones that are not like that at all. So
It's just that we hit the jackpot with the low L teenage girls.
we are a low L dispensary. So they do say, just so that y'all know, that how do I word this? Traumatic events in life can lead to somebody being more low logic, to where that traumatic event impacts their life to such a degree that they operate that way. So, I mean, I'm not totally convinced of that, honestly, but I do see the logic behind it potentially. But yeah, but it helps with this because I'm not trying to make my daughters high L's. That is not possible. Okay. I'm just want to help them work through it so that they can understand that the Lord has made you this way, and you are going to be a very passionate, compassionate person. You are going to feel everybody's stresses and everybody's pains. You're going to feel all that personally as if it's yours. You will be phenomenal at that. That being the case, just remember, when something is stressing you out at work or with friends or something, you are going to be apt to take that very personal, even though nobody means it personal.
Mhm.
So now they could, but you
It
just
brings
have
so
to
much
work through that.
self-awareness. Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Do you think, and I'm sure people will ask this tomorrow, can you change your index? Can you, I mean, as believers, like we do need to fight sin and we have to fight these tendencies that creep up on us that we know are not healthy, but we know don't serve us well. And we're commanded to do that. But can our index change? I mean, we know the Holy Spirit can change people, right? But can our index change?
well, I don't think that your God-given traits will change. I think that you are wired the way that you're wired. I do think that your behavior 100% does change, and it's probably changing, well, maybe not constantly, but depending on the situation. Yes, I mean, somebody asked if we're impatient, shouldn't we be patient? Yes, patience is a virtue, right? So I, as an impatient person, am sinfully impatient. Okay. So it is something I need to and have to be aware of and fight through, but I'm never going to move my actual trait from impatient to patient. My behavior may go there. Okay. But I will still be fighting that. And that's good to know, okay, because now I need to be aware of it. But it also means that as an impatient person, I move quick. So it's
So
not that impatience
it
is
works both
bad.
ways. Yeah.
Not that impatient is bad. I will move quick. And there are things that we should be impatient with, frankly. We should be impatient to tolerate sin, all these things. Whereas a patient person on that spectrum is going to be way more slow to address things potentially, or, so there's all these things. That's why awareness is so powerful to me, because I'll just reiterate, the goal here is not to say you are like this, you need to stop being like that, you need to be this. You need to be aware of it. And there may be elements where, and in certain situations, like, yeah, you've got to be like, I have to be patient. I need to be more patient with my kids and my spouse, right? That's going to be a trait where I can be impatient. I should be more patient. So it's good for me to know that's how I'm wired, but not to be, well, that's how I'm wired. No, tell you.
Yeah. You
No,
can't
no,
just
no.
throw your hands up and
That's how that's going.
Yeah.
That is not how that's going to work.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, this has been fun. I love that the chat's been super active. You guys seem to be resonating with this. Yeah, we just have a few minutes left. If there's any other questions, feel free to ask those. And you've seen, I'll put the link not only here in this video, you can see it up here a little higher, but I'll also post it on the writer's block in case you missed that. But feel free if there's any other questions to ask away.
If you do a survey tomorrow, and by the way, the surveys, it'll take you, depending on how many words you have to look up, like me. If you
How
have to
detailed
look
you
up
are.
words, then higher D's, it'll take longer, lower D's, it'll be faster. So 10 to 20, 25 minutes-ish, roughly. It doesn't take too long, but don't get hung up on the time. It doesn't matter, okay? How long it takes you to do this affects nothing, so don't rush, okay? If you do it and you aren't able to be on the call, then I will figure out a way to interpret your index for you, okay? What I will probably end up doing, just so that you know, is I'll probably record a video interpreting it and send it to you. And then if you have questions or need to talk about it, we can talk about it. So if you do the survey, I will make sure it's interpreted.
Yeah, so rest assured, if you can't be on the call tomorrow, you'll get your survey interpreted for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't not do it for that reason. Do it, please.
Yeah.
So.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all.
It's
Thanks
awesome.
for being here. We'll hopefully
Thanks,
see you
everyone.
tomorrow. Take
Nice
the
to
survey.
see you. See you
All
tomorrow
right.
or soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.